the Spot Track Podcast, talking sports contracts, the salary cap, and business of sports.
Today's edition of the Spot Track Podcast is presented by Better Edge. If you dabble in sports betting, like everybody here at Spot Track does, you need an alternative, a brand you can trust that gives you the odds and the edge you've been looking for years. Better Edge recognized the problem and quickly solved it. Too much of that money was being lost in the lines, in the VIGs. Eliminate all of that. Give yourself total flexibility and customization with a safe, reliable, lightning quick payout system that is Better Edge. Visit betteredge.com today. Use code SPOTTRACK, SPOTRAC at sign up and get $20 on the house. That's betteredge.com. My name is Mike Ginnitti. It is Monday, March 10th. The calm before the storm that really isn't the calm, because every year the ramp up gets longer and longer and more explosive. And that's what we had over the course of the last 48 hours. I'm going to try to run through as many of this stuff as humanly possible, saving the notion that there's plenty more details to get to, plenty more breakdown information. If you've noticed, even the numbers that we have been able to ascertain, I'm putting estimates around. Why? So many teams are using void years and building in treated as signing bonus options right out of the gate. And not a lot of that information is available right away. So even if I have salary structures, cap hit structures, bonus structures to a certain degree, I'm still leaving some room that things can be flexible. Things will change in a lot of these cases. There's just a lot of teams that are making significant moves right now that are going to have to free up more space, even in the next 24 hours. And they'll adjust some things with void years to account for cap situations. So if you see it in purple, take it with a grain of salt on Spot Track. That's the estimate tag. I'm going to give you as much information as I have. I'm going to update it. I'm going to update that when I need to. And we'll certainly try to confirm things and speak it out to the world as confirmed as soon as I have that information. That's, of course, also true for trades, which have fallen through, which have changed, etc. We're still at ramp up mode here. So if you're listening to this, it's probably the negotiation period, which is March 10th at noon Eastern. That runs till 4 p.m. Eastern Wednesday, when things can become official. That's trades, that's post June 1st, that's salary guarantees, etc. Lots to come. And I think a couple of bangers still to come, a couple of surprises still to come. But let's run through this. Let's start with Myles Garrett. Speaking of stunners, okay. I didn't think there was any price that would keep Myles Garrett in Cleveland, because it just seemed like he was at that point of his career, 29 and change, having made at this point 125 mil already, that it was just about to flip the script. Let's go to a contender. Let's go to one of these younger, fresher, quarterback-driven teams that he can just kind of become the defensive corner piece for 3 seasons. He'll get a little bit of coin to go there, 30, 35 mil, and we'll go from there. Well, that wasn't the case, because Cleveland decided, we're not listening to any of your demands. And instead, we're just going to blow you away with one of ours, which is 4 for 160 tacked on to the 2 years that was already left, right? So I think we're getting about 6 for 200-ish. Yeah, 6 for about 200 total over the course of what remains here. And 88.8 of that is guaranteed today. And it seems like, again, don't have the full structure yet, but it seems like by the time the next 4 years are done, at age 33, he'll have made at least 125 million more. So I believe he's going to double his earnings over the course of the next 4 seasons under this contract, most likely in Cleveland. It's uberly aggressive for a team that has all sorts of baggage attached to it right now, but they clearly didn't want to rip this Band-Aid off. And the best way to settle everything else around him is to lock in Myles Garrett, because as you already heard, Denzel Ward and other names were ready to pounce. We're ready to say, get me the heck out of here as soon as Garrett was going to go. I get it from that standpoint. Do I think they can compete in their division? I don't. However, they might just be a quarterback away. So whatever their plan is, whether it's give up some of these draft picks to go and get Cam Ward at 1, whether it's just sort of wait this out and see what falls in your lap. Maybe it's a trade back for Shadur Sanders. Maybe it's something completely different. I do believe, I'm positive they're going to stopgap 2025 with somebody. Kirk Cousins, bringing back Jameis Winston. Maybe it's the Russell Wilson conversation. Something like that is going to happen for Cleveland over the course. It could be Jacoby Brissett, of course, over the course of the next couple of weeks here. But this is a signal to me that they are trying to keep at least status quo, which hasn't been great, by the way. And I don't think it has anything to do with Deshaun Watson. None of it. That's going to be its own set of books, its own talking point, its own discussion point. And they're trying to develop and maintain a team alongside of that conversation. And I give them credit for that, because there's not a lot of organizations, especially smaller markets like this, that would be going this route. But they're opting to do that. And this is certainly a foot in the sand moment with this Myles Garrett contract. It is as big as we've had. It is $40 million a year, which is $4.5 million more than any other non-quarterback in the history of the game. Max Crosby, of course, just 48 hours ago, locked in that $35.5 million deal to basically bring the same conversation to the Raiders. Okay, now they backed that up with the Geno Smith acquisition, pending, of course. So they've already put 2 or 3 marks on 2025 to say, no, we're not going backwards by any regard. If anything, we like quite a bit of our core, and we're going to start to push this thing forward with some immediacy over the next 2 to 3 years. I think the Browns are trying to say the same thing. They just don't have the same sort of core, okay? And the core that they do have is starting to age out, right? A couple of those offensive linemen, Denzel Ward, even Garrett, right, who's 29, certainly still in some prime, but starting to age out. So they're going to have to hit on draft picks this year, next year, of course. I mean, that was going to be the case no matter what, but now even more so to try to resuscitate what they're trying to keep alive here. It's bold. It's expensive. It's very un-Cleveland-like in every regard, okay? But I give them credit. It's probably more likely to blow up in their faces over the next 3 years and become the next version of how much did they pay for 4 wins. But if it doesn't, it's a really nice moment for this franchise that they bucked the trend, that they didn't allow the player to dictate what their window was going to be for the next couple of years. Because again, Myles Garrett walks out this door, multiple other things follow. And they knew it, and they put their foot down and said, we're just going to overpay to make this conversation go away. And maybe it turns into a situation where one quarterback and, I think a running back for sure, and one running back change things around, because they did extend Jerry Jeudy after acquiring him last year. They did give David Njoku, who has been a worthy high-paid tight end, a nice deal. They do have some pieces in place, and the offensive line hasn't been awful. Again, it's aging out, but they're in a decent spot here. They're going to have to continue to be aggressive, and they have to hit these draft picks. Okay, the other big extension, of course, we knew it was coming to some degree. Didn't know if it was going to be more of a sweeten the pot renegotiation or the rip it up, start over that we got from Josh Allen, which is 6 years, $330 million, $250 guaranteed. Those are the numbers on the top of this thing. The other number I've heard from a few specific sources is that the next 3 years of this thing is $100 million cash for Josh Allen. That's big boy stuff. Big boy stuff. Excuse me. 4 years, 220 is the number. I'm getting my Garretts and my Allens mixed up here. 4 years, 220 cash. That's the big one. Okay, that's the historic payout that Dak Prescott had 219 this time last year. Jordan Love is in this conversation, way high up there. And to a certain degree, some of these recent quarterback contracts, Jared Goff, I believe, is in the 190s. with his 4-year payout. So it's been trending in this direction, and this is the direction that quarterback contracts have to go. The 6 for 330 is phenomenal, but anybody who follows this stuff knows that the 6-year total value contract just isn't going to happen. Okay, now this is going to take Josh Allen to age 34. So hypothetically, and from a reasonable standpoint, the next 4 years are what matters. Okay, because he's going to look at age 32, probably still going to be in his prime at that point in time. We have no idea what iteration of the Bills will be around him, but they'll be competing at a very high level if this guy's still standing up. And we'll be talking about Josh Allen's 4th contract at that point in time. So the practicality of this contract, and for all intents, the practical guarantees, the 250, are built into the first 4 years. In other words, it's not backloaded. It's not fluffy. The 4 for 220 is as good as we've seen in football. That is what makes this contract exceptional, because you can slice it a lot of ways to bring down the excitement level, right? $55 million a year. Well, that's Jordan Love. That's Trevor Lawrence. We got to stop thinking in those terms. We just do. Okay. Cash impact, upfront impact, and the likelihood of when he's going to want to get out of this thing. That's what matters. The Bills could have backloaded this to inflate this up to $61 million a year. Okay. He didn't care about that. He wants to make it easier for the Bills to get out of this thing for both purposes, for both sides. After 2028, at age 32, to get that 4th contract. That's good quarterback agent move, okay, by CAA, the quarterback agent gurus. That's what happens here. Obviously, we got a lot to see here. Is it going to lower his $44.7 million cap hit? Of course. Is it going to increase the $14.5 million cash he was supposed to make? Wildly. All right. I'd be surprised if there wasn't 3 to 4 bonuses on this thing, a signing and 2 or 3 options, because you have to go that route. You just have to with these sizable contracts. They got it done. They got it done a year before I think a lot of teams would have done it. How many teams would have ripped up 4 years and started over? I don't know. Okay. Now, Allen, I think, forced to hit the hand here with the season of his life, an MVP award, etc. But the Bills could have waited. They could have just pulled in an extra 40 mil from down the line, gave him a nice incentive package, and say, let's run it back 1 more year, and then 2026 is going to be your, especially knowing that Khalil Shakir got extended, Terrell Bernard got extended, Greg Rousseau got extended, and I believe Christian Benford will be right around the corner here. It's not like this was the one big move the Bills had to make this year. This is the 4th of, I believe, 5 or 6 significant moves. And oh, by the way, they're going to be active in free agency in a couple of hours here as well. So this is an all-in offseason after an all-subtraction offseason last year, and they've made it work kind of every way at this point. So good on them getting this done now, because Josh certainly wanted it done now, right? You want this 3rd contract in before you turn 30, and then you flip into your 4th contract after this. We'll see how the structure lays out, but I have a feeling it's going to be your typical 2 to 3 bonus. Low cap hits for the next 2 years. They'll have to do some kind of conversion work in 2027, and then we'll go from there. It's a big one. Okay, cash flow wise, it's a big one. Obviously, the total value is a big one, and we'll see just how impactful the guarantees are and what kind of structure we get for the next 3 to 4 years when we have it available. Bills also released Von Miller, a widely expected move, frees up $8.5 million, puts him back on the open market. He's going to test some waters. I believe he wants to play for 1 more year here. He'll be welcomed back to Buffalo on the right price. I think it was a good move for the Bills, especially prior to this moratorium period, just to get out of that thing and free up the space. Let him go do some dances with a couple of front offices, and if he wants to end up coming back here, I believe that door will be open. What else? Plenty. How about DK Metcalf? It was a maybe until it was a definitely, and then it was just a where, not if. And Pittsburgh's been trying to do this for 3 off seasons. They finally got a bona fide veteran wide receiver in this room. What does it mean for George Pickens? I'm not sure. I'm not sure if they keep that a 1-2 punch. It seems like a pretty polarizing locker room. They'll certainly need the right quarterback, and I think things are starting to trend a little bit more towards either Russell Wilson or Aaron Rodgers to certainly be the savvy vet to handle this locker room right now. There's a very clear path for them to trade George Pickens for a draft pick over the next 72 hours here, or maybe even later on the road. But Metcalf comes in on a second. It's the number 52 overall pick, which is pricey. That's a good get for Seattle, who don't have to now extend the player they didn't want to pay, which is what Pittsburgh has done. They've extended Metcalf out 4 years, $132 million, which makes it a 5 for $150 total value. And here's the thing I'll say again: we don't have details. We don't even have guaranteed details. Here's why, and I'm fascinated by this every time it happens. Pittsburgh's one of those teams, one of those front offices that, outside of extremely special situations, and the ones off the top of my head are Ben Roethlisberger, TJ Watt's current contract, Micah Fitzpatrick's current contract. Outside of those, there's a couple more I'm missing, but that's top of mind. Pittsburgh only guarantees year one. Generally the signing bonus, sometimes that first year salary. But for the most part, base salaries and future roster bonuses, they are not guaranteed until that league year. It is, we'll give you everything up front, and then it's pay as you go year to year. So there's a world where this is a 5 for $150 that is actually a 1 for $30, okay, or a 1 for $33, whatever it's going to be in this first year for DK Metcalf, and he'll be basically year to year, which makes him highly tradable, highly releasable, of course, and highly unstable, right? Highly protected from injury. We'll see if that changes. This is certainly one of the bigger contracts in Steelers history from a total value standpoint. They have been pretty good about flexing out of their trend and at least guaranteeing a couple of base salaries, maybe a 2026 roster bonus. But this is one of those structures I'm dying to see, because Metcalf, who was reportedly, I'm air quoting, looking for warm weather, certainly didn't get warm weather. And he might not get a lot of guarantees either because of the way that the Pittsburgh Steelers do business. Trey Hendrickson, big winner. Okay, we know what the trade cost is going to be now. It's for sure going to be in this second to third round. And the Myles Garrett, Max Crosby extension weekend here only helped. Okay, is he a $40 million player? I don't believe so at his age. Okay, the production's certainly been there for the past 2 seasons. All right, but he was a 28 to 29 mathematical value in our system, and that's now 32 without even trying, without doing nothing. He just woke up Monday morning, $4 million per year, valued richer. And if somebody says this is going to be a 2 for $70, I'm not going to gawk at that. I understand that. If this is Washington, who's got a lot of value around the roster, I'm not going to gawk at that. Do I think Cincinnati gets it done now? Hell no. All right. Because DK Metcalf's $33 million a year drove a lot of wide receiver values north. A lot. Why? He's a bit older. Okay. He's not one of these young guns getting paid. This is contract 3 for him. So the Chases, the Higgins, to some degree, even like Jacoby Myers of the world. Okay. Cortland Sutton got a bump from that deal. All right. I've got Chase now mathematically approaching $36 million a year, which means that's his fair value. I think we're long past fair. Okay. I'd expect him to be in the 40 conversation. I don't know if it gets there. Okay. And certainly the guarantees matter a hell of a lot more to both Cincinnati and to Jamar Chase. But just as a starting point, just as a metric point, he bumped up quite a bit over the course of the last 72 hours, as did Higgins. Okay. And Higgins has always been sort of second fiddle, not only in Cincinnati, but with a lot of contracts. Okay. I know that the Ayuk $30 million a year has always been sort of the target price. Even with the bumps, Higgins is a $28 million player in our system. It's playing time. It's, overall production. Okay. Yes, he finds the end zone at a very high rate, but a lot of his other production just mathematically brings him down when comparing these other players. So there will be more money dished out because of this 1 week run up. There's no question about it. And the name I haven't even gotten to yet, of course, is Micah Parsons, who was already going to be in the 40 conversation before this ridiculousness happened. And now, because of where we are with him, right, the fifth year option, similar to Chase, it's why I'm saying Chase is a 36 that should get to 40. Well, the conversation to be had with Micah Parsons, to me, isn't about the flat AAV or the guarantee structure. There's no world where he shouldn't be at the top of that list. So I go back to the metric that I love to turn to in very unique situations, which is the percent that the average salary is versus the salary cap for the league that year. Okay. Percent APY of the salary cap. That's the big one. If we look at those metrics, TJ Watt's been the winner in the clubhouse for a while here at 15.3%. Okay. It's one of the things that Pittsburgh does well because they don't guarantee you 3 years up front. All right. So they'll inflate the APY to counter for the fact that the guarantees aren't going to be great. That's why DK's 33 when he probably should have been 29. Okay. That's why I'm warning you right now. This DK guarantee stuff's going to be ugly in my opinion. Let's just say Micah Parsons says, this is the metric. This is the one that I want to be top of the mountain at. Okay. So 15.35%, 1/100th higher than TJ Watt's percentage in Pittsburgh. That's $42.8 million per year. Okay. That's why this stuff isn't crazy. That's why 40 is not even close to crazy. Right. There's a very conscious world where Micah Parsons can walk in the door and ask Stephen Jones for $43 million a year. And this is why, because Watt has done this. Now, everything I just told you is the reason why Jerry Jones and Stephen Jones can push back. Well, we don't need to go 15.5% of the cap because we're going to guarantee you $125 million today, right now. Okay. More than Myles Garrett, way more than Max Crosby. We're going to give it to you where it counts, which is fully guaranteed at signing. We're happy to put that in escrow for you, like we've done for Dak, like we've done for CD, etc. That's the pushback. So that's why Parsons won't be a $42 million per year contract, but it's going to be the 40. Okay. It's going to have to match Garrett just for optics. And then it's going to have to go past Garrett in terms of guarantees. So the Micah stuff's going to get fun. Generally, Dallas waits until all the dust settles before they get their internal stuff done. However, they did sign a DT and they have been fairly active in some of these conversations for trades and things like that. So there's a world where they change their course just a little bit this offseason, and we'll see what happens there. Other moves. I don't think I've actually talked about the Geno Smith stuff yet in its entirety. I think the last time I spoke with you was Friday with Dan Soman, where we were sort of spitballing Geno to the Raiders, Brock Purdy to the Raiders, and of course, 24 hours later, Geno Smith is unofficially, but soon to be, a member of the Las Vegas Raiders. The trade's interesting. It's good. What happens now, though? Because the reason he's there, the reason he's not with Seattle, isn't about his production or his ability to manage an offense. They just didn't want to pay a 34-year-old quarterback in Seattle. They're looking for something younger. They're looking for something that better aligns with where they're going, which is younger, cheaper, more long-term than shorter term. Geno's looking for that $45 million a year after basically taking, 27.5 over 2. He's got 31 because he was escalated $6 million this year. So it's a 1 for 31 right now, essentially. But even mathematically, all right, the reason he was escalated $6 million is because the production has been there. It just has. He's at 250 yards per game. Okay. His interception stuff's a little high, but it's on pace with the Cousins of the world and the Staffords of the world. And those players are both at 40 or past 40 mil. So if you're telling me that Seattle was in the high 30s, but really wouldn't really go north of 40 over the next couple of years, A, I get it from their standpoint, but B, Vegas can't even start there. So this to me is going to be a 2 for 86 minimum that probably has to come in at 2 for 90. Tacked on to that 31. So we're talking 3 for 120-ish, 125-ish probably when it's all said and done over the course of the next 3 seasons in Vegas for Geno Smith. And the conversation then becomes, is this the guy? Is this the guy for multi-years? Or are they treating this as we're going to bring him in And we're also going to draft and develop somebody behind him. We'll have to see, because they do have ample draft picks this year. They could be in this conversation again next year, despite the fact that they've been all aggressive. So fascinating team. Again, credit for the aggressiveness, credit for the structures of these contracts we're seeing. I think everything we're saying with Gino is going to come to fruition here. So I give him credit for that before it even happens. And then we'll see if it can translate. Can they make an impact in this division and sort of get some bang out of this buck here sooner rather than later? Other trades quickly. Devon Godshaw has left New England for the Saints. The Saints have to operate this way. I made a snarky joke that the Saints can't even afford Godshaw's $5 million cap hit right now. Well, it's true, but certainly they will be able to after more and more maneuvers, a couple of which are going to be extensions. I think Chase Young gets a nice, healthy contract there. They want to spread out his void year cap. They want to keep him as an edge rusher. And now it's Godshaw, maybe Cam Jordan, and Chase Young, along with a few others. They got something there. All right. The offensive line's a mess. They're going to have another retirement here with Ryan Ramczyk. Unfortunately, there's a couple of pieces in place. That's an area of concern outside of the fact that, Olave is their best pass catcher and he's got a big injury history to start his career. We know the Derek Carr stuff was going to happen. I just told you there was no way around this. Okay. Outside of a Hail Mary trade, which is going to wreck their cap anyway, not only do you keep him, you have to convert the salary. You have to free up. You have to use his contract to not only get compliant, but start to then piece away at the rest of things. There's a lot more work to be done here. This is a team that's going to be unbelievably active as you're listening to this right now, because they have to be. They have to get themselves compliant and ready. But I'll say this, because I joke about this team a lot, because they're, the elephant in the room cap team. They're not going to stop signing people. Okay. This trade is not them trying to get younger and cheaper. If anything, it's the opposite. They're still trying to plug and play. They're still trying to be aggressive. They have been for a decade, and it hasn't been successful, but they're still at it. And oh, by the way, they might as well be, because of the Carr situation. They might as well be. Now, is there a moment in this season where they rip this Band-Aid off and start to free up cap space? Sure. Expect them to be active sellers of the trade deadline, which is a good time for them to do that in a post 6-1 world. Expect them to be active post 6-1, by the way. Okay. When the summer gets here, they're going to have to make this a 12-month scenario, but it makes no sense for them to sit on their hands knowing that Derek Carr's guaranteed at $40 million this year and they've pushed the cap down the line. If there are moves to be made, they're going to make them. And I give this team all the credit in the world for that. Okay. It has not translated to much success, if any, over the course of the last few seasons. But they're only a bad division away. All right. They're in one of those divisions where you can sneak it out. You can eke it out. So this Godshaw trade is just another example of them being in a mess and saying, we're fine. Let's continue to monitor the waiver wire and the cap casualty list and things like that, where we can find some value, despite the fact that free agency is only 72 hours away here. Extensions. Got a few more here. Detroit's been really active. They brought back Marcus Davenport. They brought back Derek Barnes and a few others this week. Obviously, they like who they are, and that makes a heck of a lot of sense, okay? The Barkley one was obviously the one we're going to talk about quite a bit going forward. Not so much today as we kind of dove into it last week. We do have the full details on that available on spotrac.com. Spoiler, signing bonus and 4 option bonuses. All right. What else do you want to see? It's the Eagles. They're the best. They take forever to maneuver, and they sneak it all in, as we've just talked about, one of the most aggressive teams that we have in this league and in sports, in modern American sports. Bobby Wagner and Zach Ertz stay in Washington. You can understand them doing a little bit of a running back. A couple of teams I'm waiting on. Houston. Let's go. I get it. Stroud had a bit of a step back year. It's just to be expected. Okay. I know they still have a boatload of faith in this dude. They need to be active. All right. They need to be active in the trenches. I believe they're going to set Stingley Jr. up to an historic extension here soon. That quarterback market is going to pop. It's a good draft. It's a decent free agency, but there are 3 to 4, Christian Benford, Sauce Gardner, Trent McDuffie, Derek Stingley Jr. That's just off the top of my head. There's a couple more I know. that will be at the top of the market in the next 2 weeks, 4 weeks. So that's one to watch there. Houston's going to be active internally. I need them to be active in free agency. They changed a lot of things up last year. Some of it worked, a lot of it didn't. They need to right the ship. And I think that's the tinkering, the little 1-2 year contracts might have to go by the wayside. They may have to make a couple of splashy moves here over the next 72 hours. And I would expect them to, because Indy's in interim right now, bringing in a quarterback to compete with Anthony Richards. Jacksonville is in interim right now. Okay. New front office is certainly going to has already started reshuffling that pot as they rebuild around 4 more years guaranteed of Trevor Lawrence. And Tennessee is complete TBD, to the point of where I did a quick quarterback carousel tweet this morning. I don't even know where to put him. Okay. My guess would have been Mason Rudolph, Carson Wentz. All right. And I don't blame him. I don't even think that's the wrong move. You draft an edge rusher, or you draft a defensive lineman or an offensive lineman. I don't think it's Travis Hunter. That doesn't make a lot of sense. But you draft big player, non-quarterback this year, throw a serviceable quarterback out there with a team that's got to develop a little bit, and then you right back in that number 1 pick next year for a great quarterback class. So I think they're playing the long game, but if they end up acquiring Kirk Cousins this year, don't be surprised, because everything's always on the table with the NFL. One more edge rusher, Greg Rousseau, stays in Buffalo on a 4 for $80. He was entering a 5th-year option. Buffalo needed the cap space, and they needed to keep an edge rusher around. All right. They lost Von Miller. I think there's a chance Matt Milano's on the bubble here, who's been oft injured, even though highly productive at times. And they've got a couple of plug-and-play players around them. They're going to be active at this position all offseason, free agency, and probably mid-rounds of the draft as well. But Rousseau can now lock in for a good 3 seasons here. We've got the estimated structure live on Spotrac.com. It is a 3-4, 56 and change from a cash standpoint. Lowers the cap hit by about $8 million for 2025, which certainly Buffalo needed. And there's an option. It's a signing option bonus structure, which keeps the cap hit in 2026 nice and tempered as well. So that'll be a questionable one with some Bills fans. I know this guy had a rocky start and has been kind of back and forth, right? Good, bad kind of thing. Well, they just need him now to be a highly paid, highly productive player, because the kind of rest of this edge rusher scene in Buffalo is falling by the wayside quickly. And it'll be certainly a need over the next couple of days. Okay, I'm going to pause right there. I know there's a ton I didn't get to, but there's also a ton I'm not getting to in terms of data. So I'm going to be really direct and brief with these pods this week. I will promise I'll get to you at least twice, probably 3 times. But there's just a lot of data to get to, and I want to make sure that the site has as much updated as humanly possible. I put out a tweet late Monday or early Monday morning with like 6 or 7 links on the site that I really think are valuable to NFL fans. I truly do. It's why we built them. It's why I use them every day. We have an off-season tracker, which sort of summarizes everything: free agent signings, contract extensions, trades that are made, conversions that are made, etc. There's this, of course, the detailed free agent tracker: who's signed, who's available, and what are the numbers. We have a similar contract extension tracker where you can just see all the extensions that have happened in 2025, and then you can go back and see previous years, of course. Same with the trade tracker. Full details of each trade, including some financial information associated with each, and then just the flat out transaction wire. All right. Just everything that happens, from releases to trades to signings to restructures to conversions, renegotiations, the works. That's available. Find that tweet from about 9:00 a.m. this morning. That's got pretty much every notable link you'll need, including the team's salary cap tracker, which gets updated in real time as I'm processing this data, which I'm going to do right now. For Scott Allen, my name is Mike Ginnitti. Thanks for listening to this edition of the Spotrac Podcast.